the other day when it was mentioned that they are doing the green belt, I think that went across the Congo and wherever else they're planting trees, sort of reminded me, you know, the old story when we went to school about Johnny Appleseed. Does anybody remember that? He was, they call him a barefoot wanderer with a tin pot hat and a sack of apples. So he might leave the start of trees everywhere he went. His real name was John Chapman. And evidently he was a child of war. He was on the East Coast, born in Massachusetts. And he grew up in the middle of the American Revolutionary War. His father had served as a Minuteman at the Battle of Bunker Breed's Hill and helped construct the defenses of New York, yada, yada. His father survived the war, but his mother did not, as she died in childbirth. Well, after the war, Chapman's father returned home and began to teach his son farming. So, Chapman had developed into an orchardist and a nurseryman, and by the early 1800s was working on his own. He was a nomad in reality. He never married. The frontier law at that time evidently allowed people to lay claim to the land through the development of permanent homestead. Such a claim could be made by planting 50 apple trees. So in his travels through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, he found that he would plant swaths of seeds to begin an orchard and then sell them to the settlers once the land had grown bountiful. He became a land baron from this. Everything was bountiful. He traversed 100,000 miles of Midwestern wilderness and prairie. When he died in 1845, he owned more than 1,200 acres of land. Now, the apples he was planting were small and tart, and evidently they called them spitters, because that's what you would likely do if you took a bite of one. But the apple itself was ideal for making your hard cider or your apple jack. And at that time, it was a far more valuable crop than the edible apples, because the edible apples spoiled quicker. They were less likely to be eaten. They made cider out of them, for most of them, when they could. They said that the water in those times could house dangerous bacteria and whatever else was in the water, but they said the cider was safe and delicious, so this is why they made it. But he made his way through, wore his threadbare clothes, and preferred to go barefoot. So anyway, he always is pictured with a sack of apple seeds. Evidently, he planted the whole apple because it was very, very small compared to the apples we see like at the farmer's market or the supermarket or hanging on a tree if you're lucky to have a apple tree. He also became a vocal animal rights activist and a vegetarian. He did not graft anything to create his orchards, believing that this growing technique physically hurt the source plants. So he carried a large sack of the seeds everywhere. He traveled. So he never got married. He never had any children. And of course, in his death, he grew legendary. Like I said, I remember stories being told in school about him. But I thought it was an interesting little thing to remember. I mean, we can do a lot of things just by planting a seed at a time. Evergreen, apple. I received a card in the mail not too long ago about the Forestry Commission or whatever they are, offering to send me 10 free pine trees. And so I went and called my cousin, Tom, because he's the farmer, and his cousin Craig is too in this lifetime. And Tom said he got that too, He got it last year even, and he said he ordered them. He had to pay some shipping, but they turned out to be like maybe 5 inches tall and spindly on the dry side. But he has some property further up north, so he went up there to plant them. So maybe things will, everybody's starting to plant maybe, which is a good thing, I think.
Sandy, that's a cool story. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I remember Johnny Appleseed. That's somebody created that legend, and we all would say in our day we heard that. That's so cool, and how you presented that was great. You're the great storyteller here. That's so neat. You're paying attention. Those trees from the government. That's interesting, isn't it? How they send these things out. I wonder if they're GMO. Yeah, I kind of wonder. So we can buy our own stuff, but it's the idea. But now we're into the tree thing here, which is really good, which actually, when we were doing the event, when we started the event at Orange Coast College at the beginning of the year, I kind of created the idea to have a tree contest where people dress up as trees. Remember when sometimes when we were little or we had children, they would have these little plays that the parents would go to, and the kids would dress up as a rock or a tree or something. And so I kind of saw that, and we made flyers up there. Ava and I made flyers and maybe if Kelsey still has them, she can kind of share it here. We made up several flyers with the event, and so yeah, I see trees as awesome. Now, just recently, yesterday we created for the Tree Talkers, Dot Strikingly, and that's Kelsey and the kids, and they're going to go out and interview trees, and Val's going to film Kelsey talking to the trees, etc., and what's going on. And there was a nature day, there was an earth day or whatever at the college. We created these things for what was coming up in the event, but that all got kind of pushed aside because of what we were dealing with the administration. And so, do you have the one we did yesterday of you, Kelsey? As long as you're popping these things up here, is it there? I can put it up, but do you have it? The one we did of Kelsey yesterday, Tree Talkers? Yeah, okay, sweetie, go ahead. Yeah, so because of what Val has discovered and these things that brought up, we're really focusing on the trees. And I'm glad you brought that up too, Sandy, with it's called the Green Belt in Africa. And they want to go clear across, and it's very interesting. It goes through the Congo too. It goes through the middle of Africa, and that's where Miriam is. And so we're looking to do this. I'm not going to just promote it a lot yet, but that's the idea now in Baja, is to do Greenbelt Baja, and to get along with this because get the attention going of people with the trees. It's very important because like in the film we saw with the nature and everything, and we created our own, Ava and I created our own. We put this together. I said, Ava, I want to find kind of a cartoon picture of a tree, and we're going to call it New Trees for All. And then also you notice the symbol there, because we can move that. It's a stamp we made. You can move that from picture to picture, and then we're going to do more on that. It's actually two little bluebirds. I wanted it like that, and I had Ava pull up the words, so it's like a little smile there. So it's like a little face. You got two little bluebirds in the tree, and it's a little smile. It says New Trees for All. And so that's our heading. We'll probably make other little stamps like this, but the whole idea. And then there's, I suggest to see the videos on Felix in Germany, a 9-year-old kid that started at 9 years old to do this with the trees. And now he has how many groups, Val? Like 50,000 groups?
50,000 ambassadors, certified.
55,000 ambassadors around the world. This kid started at 9 years old in Germany about the trees. And he has some really cool pictures. Ava and I are going to take that. And it's the reality. If it were me, this is what I would do too, just like the funny pictures we do and all the stuff we've done, like Joni and Harry. But he's got pictures of kids a child standing next to an adult, and the child has one of their hands over the mouth of the adult, and it says, "Stop talking, start planting." Yeah, because everybody does the talk, 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 but what are they doing? And the kids are right on. He's got all these kids. It's so cool to watch these videos. Very inspiring. And it's such a simple thing, and trees are awesome. And for those of you that read The Tiger's Fang, in there was Paul met the tree of life. And so it is like that. So trees are awesome. And this is a great connection for us, the New Presentation Foundation and the worldwide educators, to connect with these people, very real, for what trees do. And they can create their own environment when there's enough of them. They get together and they they harmonize and they create their own weather. They do their own environment, you see? And so this is what the real universal position is that I'm deciding. And so it's going to be even more so than that. But this is part of it leading up to it till there are those who can recognize what's going on. So in the meantime, we do all these fun things. Yes, very, very real. Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful.
There's you reminded me that over in Appleton, Wisconsin, that's just south of Green Bay, there's a small chain of restaurants that use trees as the theme for the restaurant. And they have these huge fake trees right inside, and they have it set up to where kids can stand next to it and have their picture taken, and so I haven't been there in years, but maybe next time we go over there, we'll take some pictures and share it with you guys and show you what that's all about. Maybe that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, we actually wanted to go over to Appleton to share some things with Roger Klemp, Harold's cousin, before we go over to Minnesota. Well, maybe we'll take them out to eat at the restaurant.
Yeah, we'll take them out to eat at the tree restaurant. That would be good, wouldn't it, dear? Yeah, what makes you really healthy is having good nutrition.
There you go. You could do a lecture tour on that.
So many kinds of trees. There's a lot of sustainable, like bamboo, out there that grows very fast. And then the usable part you can take and make paper or whatever. There's many things you can do with it. And it replenishes itself, which is a beautiful thing. In other words, when they chopped down all our trees in our back, those were oak trees, they were maple trees, and then of course they put up all those 14 condos in a gated community. And when those bulldozers came in to plow down those big oak trees, big pine trees, I was a little bit annoyed, devastated. That we used to go for walks back there, and there was a lot of wildlife back there. There were deer, there were foxes, there were raccoons, there were birds of all kinds. Woodpeckers, yeah, we have woodpeckers. They're still hanging around. But I used to see deer in my yard, rabbits and everything, and now that they've built those condos within throwing distance, I don't get that anymore in the yards. I still have the birds drinking out of the bird bath, but nothing like the wildlife that had to move on because of the condos.
When I was speaking of trees, when I was a kid, my grandfather had a Bell & Howell 8mm movie camera, before the Super 8 movie cameras, and he had it way back in the old days. And when my dad was growing up as a kid, he got a summer job in high school working with the railroad companies. And what the railroad companies were doing is they were trailblazing to put in railroad tracks up into northwestern Wisconsin. And my dad signed on to work with them. And my grandfather went in there one time, and where all the lumberjacks were cutting down these trees. And when I was a kid, my grandfather showed me a film that he took of a stump that they came across. They right in the middle of where the railroad track was going, they had this stump that was in the way, and it was, the roots were almost like concrete. It was, or steel. They had a hard time dealing with it, and the stump was 30 feet in diameter. That's how big this tree was. And they tried axes and everything, trying to chop down the roots and everything, and they got so frustrated they put they decided to dig out from underneath the stump, and they dug underneath the stump and put about 3 boxes of dynamite, full of dynamite, hoping to blow the stump out of the ground. And my grandfather had it on film. And what happened when they lit off the dynamite, and he was back, a few hundred feet, a safe distance back. And when the dynamite went off, all you saw was a huge plume of dirt coming out from under the stump, and the stump didn't even move, didn't even budge. So my dad said that there were stumps all over the place like that when back in the 20s and 30s, back up in northwestern Wisconsin. And I had no idea that they had trees that big up there. You've seen those old pictures of the miners where they would cut these logs that were maybe 10 or 12 feet in diameter, where you'd have a lumberjack standing in front of one of the logs that they cut, and the guy was 6 feet tall and the stump was twice as high as he was. But these stumps were 30 feet in diameter, so it would really be neat to be able to plant those kind of trees and see that come around again. I think that would be wonderful.
Well, now you have something to do, don't you?
Of course, I don't know if I'm going to be around when it reaches maturity or not.
Well, you never know. You got someplace to go?
Yeah, the real side.
You're already there. You just have to recognize it.
Well, that's yeah. You got yeah. That's true.
It's not what you think or thought it was.
For sure.
Oh, I'm getting there. I'm slowly coming around.
You're already there. It's about recognition now. It's not about looking at a chart on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a difference. So again, we did that in when we were babysat, but we don't need the chart anymore. Okay, so it's better. You just have to recognize it. Yeah, you don't need to go anywhere. Again, that's the real position that's being established here. Yeah, more so than anything else. So we've played with our mind for the longest time, and we learned to see you're going through very fast. Okay, so all the time that it's taken me to get here and present this, you kids are going to go a lot faster because you're getting the juice that's squeezed from the fruit. You see? So you don't have to wait till it grows. You're getting the good stuff right away. So those that pay attention, they're going to be fine. Everybody else, well, you got to figure it out. So again, we have many things out there for people to take a look at and have fun with until they really decide to step up all the way and stand real and recognize the real position with the all is and the real guide. So again, you decide, you are the decider. So in the meantime, yes, we have a lot of fun stuff to do that we're going to provide for the world. So let's see what happens. So yeah. So you kids, what you're sharing is very important. You've stepped up. Again, most of the world is watching. As we do something, as we just become involved and make these connections, people see us. They do have different reactions. Kelsey had a confirmation from John Ellis to do an interview. Well, a few days later or so, he said no. I would say that because he saw our stuff, just like at OCC. Again, it's free will. I don't assume anything about anything. The boys don't either. And they have the same situation. They don't magically convince people. what they do is they demonstrate something that makes sense and see if people are paying attention, because it's free will. It's free will. So there's no destiny that, people are going to wake up. We provide what we do. We'll see what it is. And again, people make the choice. Just like the Queen of Orion, her arrogance was more important to her. And, a lot of people have a lot of arrogance, and that's very important to them. It's the me thing, or it's mine, mine. Just like in that Disney movie with all the seagulls, mine. You see, so again, until you see the bigger picture. And so this is what we're presenting here. Everything's for everybody, and there's enough for everybody always. And so again, but there's a better position than creation itself. But at the same time, you get to play in creation and be part of it too, with no longer being the effect of it. That's the big deal. So we're going through the steps. We're providing all of this for the world. We're taking the risk. And I like your idea. I'm going to play on that too. Nutrition. Yes.
Nutrition.
Nutrition. Yeah, nutrition. Yes, I like that. That's very good. I do that with words too and play on that. So again, we use the same thing, but at the same time, we kind of exaggerate a little bit so that people all of a sudden pay attention. We have something unique to play with, where it's just not supposedly common. And so we have the challenge too of we only have so much time because there's free will out there, and those that control this world, they don't want people to succeed. So protecting these forests too, that's going to be interesting. So that's part of what we're doing on the real side too. That's the galactic side, because there's a much bigger picture than this, what's happening on the earth. Because I use the example, and there's many, but those of you that not sure about Gaddafi, but he was not the dictator that the United States created the idea about him. He was into organic farming for over 40 years. And then the elites at a certain point just decided to go in there with the U.S. military and destroy everything that he did with lithium bombs. Does that make sense? Again, what they do is they wait to either steal or destroy what people have created. So it's a real challenge here to do something, not thinking that, I've got this idea and everybody's going to love it. That's not the idea. It's that, what we're presenting is very sincere, very real, very genuine, very beneficial, but at the same time, most people don't want it. They really don't, because again, they're self-convinced, and they've got to get through that. They've got to decide to get through that to see more. So we can only do so much, but at least we're doing something. Yes, go ahead, kids. Go ahead.
Speaking of Gaddafi, what I heard about Gaddafi was he turned out to be a real humanitarian, and he got rid of all the fiat money out of his country and started a new economic system where everything was backed by gold. And all of a sudden, all the people that were unemployed got jobs. All the neighboring countries got on the bandwagon, and his economy was just growing like 300% a year or something. It was going through the roof, and he was becoming so successful economically, and everybody was happy. Everybody was having a standard of living unknown to that part of Africa. And the U.S. government watched that and watched this guy starting his own economic system without the almighty U.S. dollar, and they couldn't take it anymore, and that's why they went in and destroyed him.
You got it, Bob, and that's exactly what they do. So they don't want competition. So that was mainly it, because the Federal Reserve, which is reptilians, they don't want their monetary system messed with, because that is the main control in this world, is their so-called money.
Yep.
Yeah, very real. Yeah, and so what they do is they create a scenario that sounds good to the rest of the world, whatever, and a lot of people can see through this, but for the most part, most people can't, because it's all about agreement. See, they're so afraid. They need the agreement of the people. They could just go in there and say, we're destroying them because we don't like them, but they're not going to do that. So they set up this political ploy to where oh, he did this, he was a bad guy, so we got to get rid of him and take him over and create our own democracy. So everybody has freedom, you see. Again, yes, you see these things, and Gaddafi had the courage, and he knew what he was dealing with, but you know what? He decided to do it anyhow.
Well, Duane, we are so grateful and thankful that you are allowing us to become part of your everything that you're doing. We consider it a tremendous gift that you've given us.
The best part of what's taking place here, Bob, is everybody that steps up and has the courage to do so, to see what's going on and make a better choice that contributes to something that makes sense and it's a real benefit. It's just that simple. I'm just doing my part. I'm just very grateful that I have the awareness to see this. And so that's my position. And this is where I put everybody in front of me, because we're all the same. We're all the same beings. If it's a bird, if it's a bug, it's an animal, whatever, these individuals, they have awareness too. And they sense and see things where people usually may use their emotions in mind, which is fine, but you can always do better. So what makes sense? That's all. This is the fun part I have, is just looking and seeing what's really going on and behind the scenes and behind even the experiences that we have on the real side. There's more to see. And this is where it's invisible. It's like the love idea people have. You don't see the love, but people think in terms of, oh, I love Susie or Bill or whatever. The idea is they see the body. Oh, I love his mind or whatever. It's, or I love what he does or whatever. See, these are the things, but really seeing the being of everything. And so we've been through all these dastardly lifetimes. We went through all this friggin' nonsense that is just so unbelievable. What a torture here in creation when you're the effect of it, and you no longer have to be that. So again, a step at a time, just like children, life and the real guides are showing us, giving us better examples to deal with and deciding. You are always the decider. So you can see yourself as that real free being of light, but you have to decide to do that. And for the most part, it's not that, you can tell people, but most people are going to say, no, that's there's no such thing, see. So again, many times it's the God idea or something like that. But again, you're the decider. If you accept that, then that's what that is for you see. So there's always more. Yes, there's always a lot more. So this is what we're doing, a step at a time, and at the same time relating something to the world that's deciding to going to destroy itself. Yeah. Yeah, I see it as very important. Every little thing that comes along, and with Kelsey and Val here, we discuss this all the time. And Kelsey creates, I'll write something, I'll create a group or whatever, and Kelsey will create the websites for this. Very important. So after a while, we got thousands of websites out there. So people are going to come across something, aren't they? Yeah. So again, kids, the folks here, thank you, Sandy, for, you guys are wonderful. You put this together great. And you see what the adventure is now, what we're focused on. And by the very fact of what we're doing, we'll supersede all these things that where others have created restrictions. So we just keep going with what we're doing, etc. So yes, thank you so much. You kids did great. Thank you. We'll see you soon.